right, so this is the fourth video in the pentatonic patterns series of videos. So now we are on pentatonic pattern 4, and so again, here is a diagram showing the cyclical pattern of the 5 pentatonic patterns on the guitar fretboard. I've outlined pentatonic pattern 4 in the blue box. I personally like to think about pentatonic pattern 4 as another key pivot in the pentatonic patterns, in the sense that it is almost identical to pentatonic pattern 1. And I'll show you what I mean, which is pentatonic pattern 4, the root starts here on the A string. And it looks a lot like pentatonic pattern 1, where the root here starts on the E string. So we take this root flat third interval and we shift it down a string, and we essentially shift all the strings down and then cycle over. And then, of course, because of how the B string is tuned, this 2-note pattern gets shifted down. So it would be normally here, it gets shifted down. And so you only have to think about 2 differences. That is, this note moves down here to become the flat third in this pattern, and then this pair of notes here, the flat third and the fourth, then of course shift down here on the B string. And so they are very much similar patterns, and the reason for this is of how you cyclically rotate the strings going one way. You cycle them around, and that's how you end up getting into pattern 4. So you can think about pattern 4 going from 1 to 4 by moving up the fretboard, or you can think about it as cycling the strings through. And so in this case, it's a direct cycle through to get to pattern 4. And I think this is a key pattern to learn in addition to pattern 1. If you're really new to this, I might actually recommend that you first learn pattern 1 and then you go learn pattern 4, simply because the roots, at least in the minor pentatonic sense, are on the 5th and 6th string, or the low E and A strings. And the very first step in learning anything on the guitar is to go memorize all the notes up the 6th string and the 5th string, or the E string and the A string. And so in a minor pentatonic sense, these are the 2 key patterns, because then you know where the roots are automatically, and it's really easy. And so I think this is a really important form of the pentatonic to learn for beginners. Of course, all 5 patterns should be memorized because of how they interact with each other and cycle around. But again, 1 and 4, I think, in my opinion, are where the beginner should really start. All right, so here we are on pentatonic pattern 4 on the 3rd fret. If you're still confused by what I mean by that, it just means that the lowest tone in the pattern, which happens to be on the low E string, is on the 3rd fret. So we're still here at G, but it's not a root. So in the minor pentatonic sense, the root is actually on the next string down. It's on the A string at the 3rd fret, which is a C. So that's a C minor pentatonic. And if you want to think about this, the relative major to C minor, or vice versa, is E flat. So once again, what we've done to get there is we've taken where this thing was a flatted third and we've just renamed it root. And when we do that, we get this. Just like before. So again, you have root 2, 3, 5, 6, and then back to root. And then for the minors, you have root, flat third, 4, 5, flat 7. As I mentioned before in the intro, this thing is a cousin of pattern pattern 1. Both patterns have a step and a half on the E string, and the only real difference is that we also have now this step and a half on the 5th string, and then this 2-note pattern is shifted down by 1 fret. And so there it is. So that's pattern 4, and here would be actually pattern 1. So again, you get that by basically cycling the notes around in a conveyor belt sense. So these notes here cycle this way, and then the only thing is the jump at the going from the G to the B string. So next, I can actually show you the way to get from the major pentatonic on the 4th pattern into the actual major scale. Okay, so here we are looking at pentatonic pattern 4, centered around the 3rd fret. So once again, that simply means that the lowest note in the pentatonic pattern is on the E at the 3rd fret, which is G. We think about the major pentatonic starting with root, and to get to the major scale from here, we simply need to follow the pentatonic pattern and then fill in where the 4th and 7th should be. So root 2, 3, 4, that's the closest 4, and it stays within the pattern. 5, 6, 7, that's the closest 7, and that stays in the pattern. Root, and then 2, 3, 4, 5. And then going backwards, it's root 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. And then if you want to cycle through, you got to go to root. So we can play that forward and backwards. So let's play it. Let's play it backwards first. So it's root 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, root. And then going forward is easier. Root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root. Root 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, root. Root 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, root. So it sounds just like you would expect the major scale to sound. So remember, it's the same scale. It's just a different shape because of where you're playing it on the fretboard. If you memorize the pentatonic shape, it's relatively easy then, once you have that down, to add in these additional notes. And as I said before, they make these nice geometrical patterns of half whole, and this pair of strings has that pattern. So the E and the B string have the pattern. Here the A and the D string share this pattern, but it's flipped, so it's whole, half. G string has 2 notes for the major scale, and then this E string, of course, has to match this E string, so it's half whole again here. But that's the way to basically start to memorize the major scale up and down the neck. As I mentioned before, if you expand out of this pentatonic zone and start letting these notes come in here, you might actually find different ways of playing the major scale that might be a little bit simpler than this, a little bit more natural, but this is just a way to figure out where the notes are. You can always play the major scale in this way. There's nothing wrong with this way, and there's nothing wrong with doing it the other way. As long as you find the right notes, all is good, and this is just a simple way to figure out how to do that. So if these videos are helpful, please subscribe, comment, and hit like. And I guess we only have one more left, the 5th pattern pentatonic, which will be coming up next.